Welcome, warriors. Today's episode is a little different and covers a topic you might not have given much thought to, and may actually redefine the word real for you in some situations. Grab a tissue, and this time, maybe for some happy tears. Let's rock.
Does your past haunt you? Maybe you're in a storm that feels like it will never end. Are you fighting a battle that's rendering you hopeless? Maybe you feel like you're fighting alone, but your battle was not meant to be a solo endeavor. You were meant to be a warrior among warriors. My name is Heather, and I grew up thinking my battles were nobody's business until I found myself in an abusive marriage and felt cut off from all avenues of help. In this podcast, you will hear warriors' words. They will tell you of their battles, both won and lost, their journeys, and their lessons learned along the way. But we don't stop there. These warriors will share how they have applied those lessons to go from warrior to survivor to thriver. Whether it's an abusive marriage, illness, mental health crisis, or any number of traumas this world dishes out, these warriors will use their words to help you find the beauty in your broken, move beyond your battles, and become the thriver God created you to be. Pick up your sword or boxing gloves and join the battle. Your words are powerful, my friends. Make them warrior words.
Welcome back to the Warrior Words podcast. I am thrilled to have my online friend, Tonya Kubo, here with us today. She is someone I've followed, listened to, and interacted with for years. And I'd like to introduce you to her. Tonya Kubo believes social media should bring people closer together, not drive them further apart. As an online community strategist, she helps mission-driven entrepreneurs grow highly engaged groups so they can conquer their business goals without running on empty. But before you get to officially meet her, here's a review from Charlotte, all the way from South Africa. This is an inspiring, exciting podcast for all of us who need to hear how others have survived. Heather, thank you for this wonderful space where we can come and hear stories of people who have pushed through and have made the journey out of their trauma and into thriving. What a wonderful place where I have felt inspired and in awe, giving me the impetus to keep moving forward in my own journey. Charlotte, thank you. Thank you for these incredible words about the inspirational nature of the stories we share on the show. And would you like me to read your review on an upcoming episode? Please go to Apple Podcasts and leave a review for the show. Your comments and your star ratings help people find the Warrior Words podcast. It only takes a few minutes of your time, and it would help so much. And I want to invite you to join my art community on YouTube. It's a channel called Beauty in the Broken, and I chose that name for my channel because I wanted to connect the YouTube channel in a visual way, because it's a visual medium, right, to the content we talk about on this podcast. So over there on that channel, I create videos that showcase art techniques that many times start out as a mess or chaos, but they end up beautiful in some way. You know, kind of even the ones I mess up on and don't turn out exactly as planned. You know, they have beauty to them, and they always have lessons that can be learned, just like the stories we share here. So it's kind of like my art therapy, and I want you to come join me. Go to YouTube and then type in the @ symbol in the search bar, followed by There's Beauty in the Broken, THERES, There's Beauty in the Broken. Don't put any spaces between the words. And I will include that link, as always, in the show notes. Please like and subscribe while you're there. Now, on to the show. Hi, everyone. As you heard in the intro, we are blessed to have Tonya Kubo here with us today. Welcome to the Warrior Words podcast, Tonya.
Thanks for having me, Heather. This is so good to be here.
I am so glad that we were able to make time to do this because you and I have known each other online, gosh, for years.
I was like, let's not count.
No, no, but we have a mutual online friend, and I think I met you through Kathy Lip, either through her podcast, The Writing at the Red House, or through maybe it might even have been through Clutter Free. I'm not sure which which came first, the chicken or the egg, which is appropriate to her latest book, right?
Yes, it is. It's very appropriate to the latest book.
But the way that we met was through communities. And that has always been something that I've known you to be a specialist in. But what I didn't know was that you have a story that fits the theme of this podcast relating to communities. So if you wouldn't mind sharing with our audience how that all came about.
Yeah. So I feel like because you had the intro that started it all off, right? I have to start it off by saying I am not somebody who loves social media, right? So, so my story, it goes back to 2007 and being of the opinion that social media, online relationships, chat rooms, all of that stuff was really for people who had nothing better to do on a Friday night. But I was a columnist for a newspaper, and I was in like a lifestyle-based community, and the community had over 100,000 people in it. And it was one that I would duck into 3-4 times a week. And over the years, I remembered when it was small. I remembered when it went from one platform to another and I was part of the migration, that sort of thing. And I never really equated that with social media or even what you would consider an online community. And then through work, I had been transferred to a very remote location. And the idea was, so I worked for a newspaper and we were buying up smaller newspapers. And my job would be to go into the smaller newspaper, assess their operation, and then get them into our production workflow. So change their deadlines around, train their staff as I needed to. And they had somebody else on site. And then they needed to move me on site because the new paper wasn't quite up to speed yet. So they weren't matching our timeline, right? So I go there and they think they're doing me a favor. They put me in this super remote, it was called like a cabin hotel. So it's just like a big campground with cabins. No phone service. So there's a rotary phone that you can dial into like the cabin office, and that's all you can do. No TV, no cell service, like out in the middle of nowhere. And they're like, it'll be like a vacation. And I'm like, yes, I need this vacation. I will take this silence. And I got there and I'd spent a few days there and I wasn't feeling well. I thought I had the stomach flu. So I went to the store, bought a bunch of protein drinks, stuff, so I'm drinking. Well, I end up late at night and I am sick. And I call my best friend and I'm like, I don't know if I have food poisoning. I don't know what's going on. So long story short, my intestines decided that they would twist into knots. This sounded like a fun time for them.
Wow.
So I end up calling her. Now, I actually don't know where I'm at well enough to get anybody there. Because she's like, well, tell me where you're at and I'll pick you up. And I'm like, I don't know. And I hadn't realized it, but I wasn't drinking. I wasn't really able to keep anything down. So I was a little bit delirious. So she figures out a way to come get me. And with my husband at the time. So they find a way to come get me. They get me and they're driving me home to take me to the hospital. So I'm at that hospital. And as I'm sure many people who listen to this story know, women tend to get dismissed at hospitals. So I spend a ton of time at the hospital and kind of being ignored. And it finally scans come back and they show what's going on. And I get this emergency room doctor who's like, you know what, I think it'll sort itself out. You're fine. And I'm like, oh, no, I'm not fine. So we end up having me sent to a hospital like 4.5 hours away.
Oh, wow.
So I wake up the next morning. So my last memory is going into the OR. I'm in the hallway. Those hallways are so cold and you have no
Yes.
clothes on, right? Can we just appreciate that for a
Oh,
moment?
been there, done that.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the surgeon's talking to you and you're like, okay, I know I'm supposed to pay attention, but I'm really cold. My teeth are chattering. And so the surgeon, he's asking me some questions because he'd been waiting for me to arrive on transfer. And he's just like, I have to be honest. I don't know what we're going to get. I am going to do my best to get you through this, but I don't know. And I say, well, the best you can do is all you can do. And as they're wheeling me into the OR, I just say a prayer. I'm just like, okay, so I may not wake up from this. There are some choices I would like to redo if I could. But hopefully I'll wake up and I'll have a chance to do that. And I woke up 6 hours later and I was cut from almost like from diaphragm all the way down to pubic bone, like split clean in half, excruciating pain. By the time I come out of the drugs, right, I'm like asking the nurses, like, where am I? Because I don't really know. And they tell me the name of the hospital. And the hospital was very excited. This is how old I am, Heather. You're going to love this.
Okay.
They're so excited. They had just gotten Wi-Fi in the rooms. They were so excited. And so I get connected to the internet. I must have had a laptop with me. That would make sense that I would have my work bag with me. So I post in this group, and it's like been at this point, by the time I get access to the laptop, all this stuff, say about 24 hours later. So I go into the group and I'm just like, hey, this is a long shot, but I'm in this hospital. And I just don't know if anybody lives in the area, but is this a good hospital? Like, what town am I in? Like, I am asking questions like I am an after-school special. And I get 2 private messages from women who are within driving distance. So next thing I know, I get visitors at the hospital. Wow. So at this point, I'm in the hospital for about 2 weeks, nothing by mouth. Like it took a year to get back on solid food. But I had people, because my best friend was working, like nobody could come visit me. So I was all alone in this hospital, except for these people from this online community, like who were strangers, but I figured, they couldn't kill me in the hospital. Like, that's pretty safe. There's security
right?
there.
Yeah.
Right? But I could remember thinking, like, really, I'm going to let strangers come and see me? And I have this rule about hospitals, you don't get to come visit me if I can't wear a bra, and I will not come visit you in an environment where you can't wear a bra. These are rules I had. And I'm like, they're not going to see me without a bra, like, all the craziness. But the point is, it took years for me to recognize like how scary of a situation I was in. But when I got out of the hospital, I recognized like the only reason I managed that whole ordeal with my mental health intact was that I had these women coming to visit me every day. They would get the nurses to put me in a wheelchair and they'd like wheel me around the hospital so I could get out off of the medical floor. They brought me fuzzy socks. They brought me like a refillable water bottle. They brought me like a stockpile of, they're disgusting, but they're like these little protein drinks that are like 3 ounces of protein because they knew that I couldn't eat. And they're like, okay, you can't eat yet, but when you can eat, just drink these. It's like a chicken breast, but only in liquid. And I'm like, ugh. They're like Jell-O shots. I'm like, ew. And then here was the other thing is, so I get released. Well, I have to come back for checkups, right? Before I get released to work and all of that stuff. They let me stay in their home. I am staying in the homes of strangers off the internet back in 2007.
I have questions.
You should have questions. And again, it was all a blur. Like I was just so grateful for the hospitality. I was grateful for just the support because nobody could really grasp what I was going through. Work just cared about when you coming back to work, Tonya. Like, do you realize you left stuff undone? Well, yes, because I wasn't actually planning on a vacation. And so, but they were there for me, like whatever I needed. And by the time I did get back to work, I was like, there is something to this. Like there is this whole community. There's this relationship dynamic. I mean, we now call them parasocial relationships, right? People who we see so much of online that we feel like we know them. We feel a personal connection, even though we've never
me with you.
Yes, like you with me, or like me with you. I mean, when you launched your podcast, I'm over here with pom-poms. My husband's like, is that a close friend of yours? I'm like, well, yeah.
Of course, we've been besties, right?
Right, exactly. I know you better than I know my next neighbor, my next door neighbor.
Oh, that is scary these days, but true. But
But
it is
it's
true.
so true. And so then that's when my publisher had come to me and he was asking some questions about MySpace. And I
That's a
said,
blast from the past.
yeah. So I built up a whole MySpace community for the newspaper based on my own experience with how this online community came up to support me in real life. And
Mm,
from then, what I realized is, online relationships can be as closely connected and authentic as in real life relationships. They really can,
I agree. Yeah.
if they are nurtured well and if they're designed accordingly. Because you know what? There are actually no more like salesy, weirdos, spammy, gross people on the internet today than there were then. They're just
Mhm.
better at hiding it now, I think. So you
Yeah,
still have to have guardrails up. You still have to
right.
have some measure of protection. But it was a powerful lesson for me. It was really powerful and it changed the whole trajectory of my career.
Wow. Wow. So my usual next question is about survival, but I think
Mhm.
you've shared quite a bit about that. So when you then made this realization, how did that change the trajectory then? What did you do
Yeah.
with it?
So the first thing I did, of course, is, was really focus on the online component of at work, right?
Hmm.
Then the other thing I did, well, it's more side by side, was I really like threw myself in almost obsessively into online communities that I was a member of. Like this one online community, I mean, I'm still a member of it. Now they've moved from the platform they were on to Facebook, but it's like, I mean, there are people there. I'm like, you guys have seen me at my darkest, seen me at my lowest.
Right. Yes.
Like
In the
they are
hospital without a
stuck
bra.
with me.
Yes.
Yes, in the hospital without a bra on, unable to eat solid food with like so many wires coming out of my body, it
Hmm.
wasn't even funny. And so, I just started like, and you've heard me talk about, if you want good followers, you have to be a good follower.
Right.
So I
Hmm.
just started being a really good active participant in communities. I stopped going into these online forums jaded and skeptical and mistrusting and just started like leaning into the fact that, hey, if somebody here was in need and I was able to help them, what would I need to know about them to know if they were somebody to help or not help, right? What would they need to
Hmm.
know about me to trust me? I mean,
Right.
I was in a point where I was so desperate. Seriously, this woman, her name was Debbie, and she spelled Debbie with two I's. So I still remember that. She could have been a serial killer. I didn't care. I was scared. I was lonely. I had nothing, right? I had nothing except for the what I came in on with an ambulance in the ambulance.
Hmm.
So I was literally at her mercy.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
she did not take advantage of that one bit.
Because there are good people still in this world, despite what the media would have us believe.
Exactly. I do believe people are inherently good.
Yes.
And I get to see that every day. So from there, I decided to leave journalism. I went into higher ed and I just
Hmm.
happened to land at a university that was brand new and let me build up their social media platforms from the ground up. And we leaned heavily on community because like when I got started there, I think our student population was 1,400.
Okay.
And when I left, we were at 10,000.
Oh, that's a big jump.
Yeah, big jump. But, everything we did was really designed toward how do we make the online space feel just like when they're walking on campus?
Hmm.
How do we make it like they know me so well that when they see me walk on campus, they recognize my face? And that's just how we built it out. And I learned so much about how humans are human. I learned about, bad side of humanity, the good side of humanity. But really, for many, many people, and you've heard me say this, I always say that, I like to use, I believe everybody deserves to have a place where they feel like they belong. And for many people, because of circumstances, the only place that is online, right? You live in a
Yes.
rural
Hmm.
environment, or maybe you just live in a community where people don't think the same way you think or don't really understand you, or you have to mask heavily.
Right.
So I want to be a person who creates those spaces online for people, whether they're like whether we have a shared experience or a shared goal or not. Because I feel so strongly that everybody should have a place where they can feel safe.
I have to admit that the theme song from Cheers just kind of ran through my head as you were saying that, because but it's true. I might get some copyright issues on that, but
Facebook would shut me down so fast.
And that would be some of the negative sides of the platforms that we have to use. But you bring up so many of the positives that, like you said, for some people, it's the only space where they feel like maybe they have friends, or maybe they feel like they can confide in someone. I do know somebody who does not belong to any other communities or groups outside, but has communities online where they feel welcomed, and feel like they can share. And so, yeah, it's as much bad press as it gets. I think you have to take some of that, you have to pay attention to it, but you have to take some of it with a grain of salt, and then look for the humanity in it, and the relationship.
What I think we've done over time, and this is definitely post-pandemic, is we have to redefine what we think of as real. Because before, it wasn't a real friend. And, in my community, right, people will talk about like fake internet friends, that they get teased, like, why you spend so much time with those fake internet friends? Because we were conditioned, most of us who are, say 40 plus, were conditioned to believe that, a friendship is only a real friendship if you see each other face to face, you have phone calls, you go to each other's birthday parties or whatever that is. And in a post-pandemic life, first of all, most of us do not have much free time for in-person interaction.
True.
And because so many things these days are polarizing, right? They feel like, okay, if I say one wrong thing, I'm like, I'm next, right? I'm not going to get invited to the next family barbecue. That these online spaces have started to become places where we tell people stuff there that we don't tell people in our real lives. Because our real lives actually feel more conditional than our online lives do.
That's an interesting point. Yeah.
So yeah, I just love making the space for people. And I like that there's places where people feel like they can have these kinds of relationships independent of where they live, or what kind of family they have, what kind of in real life relationships they have.
And you found firsthand how real these online friendships can be, because these two women that you never met face to face gave up their time, their money, their other activities that they would have done to come and be a fellow human to you, and to serve you, and to treat you with kindness.
Right. And one of them was married. Can you imagine going to your partner and saying, so there's this lady off the internet and she has a doctor's appointment here in town. I'm just gonna let her stay a couple nights with us. That's cool, right? That's what they did.
Wow. Human kindness. Those are the stories that need to be. Oh, I'm losing my train of thought, but they need to be propelled. That's not exactly the right word I'm looking for here, but we need to bolster. I don't know.
Bolster.
I call it chemo brain, but
yeah, well, chemo brain is a real
word
thing.
retrieval skills sometimes, but yeah, we need to really boost those kinds of stories, because I mean, you don't have to give us personal information, but the fact that you shared the kindness of these two strangers. It is possible. It is possible to meet real people and have real relationships on the screen, like we're doing now.
Exactly. I mean, the thing is like, if you and me met in real life, we would feel like we had, like, this wasn't our first meeting. Like, we had known each other forever. Right?
Oh, yeah.
Because
I'd come up and give you a big old hug.
Right? Oh, wait, are you a hugger? Oh, I'm so glad you're a hugger. Okay.
True. We do have to. I mean, I should know that with my son, who absolutely hates, the physical contact. But yeah, we do have to.
It's true. I mean, have you ever met anybody from online in real life? Have you gone there yet?
Well, I have with my clients because
Okay.
I've ended up meeting several of my clients in real life, and you just walk in and it's just like, wow, we've been chatting online for years, and
Uh-huh.
here you are right here. So it's
Oh,
been,
it's the best.
yeah, yeah, it's really cool. So, all right, so you are a big proponent then of community and
I am.
online spaces. So tell us how you're thriving today with all of your communities, what you're actually doing, because I don't think you're with that university anymore.
I am not. So in 2019, so it's funny is, so 2007 is when this all happened. And then 2019 was when I finally felt like, okay, I can actually focus full time on community. It doesn't have to just be a volunteer thing. This doesn't have, this isn't one of those things that it's just a little bit of a side hustle. Like this could be a full-time role. And so I left the university to work for an online education company as they called it a community champion. So as that interface from between management and their community. And I got to build communities for them and run them. Meanwhile, as you know, I was running book launches for authors using
Mhm.
community platforms to do that. So merging the two has been so much fun. I started my own group, even though I swore I never would, because I was just like, does anybody really need another Facebook group in their lives? But people assured me they needed my Facebook group in their life. So I made one.
Mhm.
It's
Which
still
I
my favorite.
enjoy.
Thank you. I was going to say it's still my favorite place to hang out. And now I get to, I feel so lucky that I've been at this long enough that people trust me to create these environments for their communities, their audiences. So I have gotten to build communities, everything from, people who want an expert-based business, a coach, a consultant, a course creator,
Mhm.
to homeschool curriculum companies who want customer only groups to like you've met me in Clutter Free Academy. That's probably like my favorite community I've ever built in my whole life because I just
And it
love the
has the
people
best
there.
slogan. Tell us what the slogan is. I love this.
It's the kindest corner of the internet.
Yes.
And it really is. Although I've had to edit that over time, it's the kindest corner of the internet if you're cluttery. If you join the community to complain about cluttery people, you will find very quickly it is not kind for you. No, you will not make friends in there at all if that's what your goal is.
Yeah. But I think that really speaks of it's kind of like the hallmark of all of the communities you have built that I've been a part of, is that they are all kind spaces. And people can come there, like you said, to feel like they belong, and they're treated with kindness and respect, and you just the whole environment, it's not like you control the participants, but it just seems like you create the atmosphere where the participants feel compelled, I guess, that they're going to be kind too, because you've set the tone.
Thank you for that. And what I will say is how you do that. So if that's something you want to do for your community or anybody else who's listening, is it really comes down to investing time on the front end in developing a structure, because you develop a structure and then you let people know sort of this is how we do things here. And you do that consistently enough, and then the community starts policing itself. You know this
Mm.
because you and me are in a lot of the same communities. If somebody's out of line, I almost never have to say anything. The other members do it for me. They're just like,
Hmm.
we don't do
Yeah.
that here. Sorry. Mm-mm.
Yeah. Yeah. Very good. Yeah. So we do have a few minutes left. I would like to have you tell everybody where they can find you, if they are interested in having you support them in a community or build one, how they can seek you out to do that.
I love that. And thank you. I really appreciate the ability to talk to other people about how to do this well. So I always say, like fungus, I am everywhere. So you just Google me and like wherever you want to interact with me, you'll find me. But the best place to really talk to me about community and to meet other people who are as passionate about community as I am is in my Facebook group, which is called The Secret to Thriving Online Communities. And it's tonya.link/group. And Tonya is spelled Tonya.
And
Just join,
yeah.
say you heard me on this show, and we'll let you right in because and I'll tell you this when I first reach out to you, I'll say any friend of Heather's is a friend of mine because it's true.
Awesome. Very awesome. And yes, come find us both in Tonya's group.
And we'll have a party.
There we
Warrior
go.
Words party right there, all together.
All right. And speaking of warrior words, do you have any last warrior words that you would want to share on the topic of just going from your very scary experience to real relationships and real friendships, even if they are just online?
So I think the number one thing that I would say, usually I would say, social media can be used to bring people closer together and not drive them apart, so long as that's your focus, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think everything you do online, you should really just ask yourself, is this the most loving action I can be performing right now? So that's commenting on somebody's post, what you choose to share. Is this the most loving thing I could be sharing right now? Is this actually adding value to the space or not? And you would be surprised at how many people you will just naturally attract simply by having that lens about which you are through which you approach your online journey.
And I think you have just done that, and you have added so much value today. And I am so appreciative of you being here. I will make sure that there is a link to your community in the show notes, and any other links that you want, I will make sure that are in there so everybody can find you. So thank you,
Thank you
Tonya.
so
I
much.
appreciate you.
I appreciate you. This has been fun. We should
All
do it
right.
again.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you very much. And we will talk again soon.
All right. Bye.
That was a super fun conversation. I love Tonya's bubbly personality and her willingness to serve others. And that's definitely a winning combination. So let me ask you a question. What would you have done if you were in Tonya's situation? She was in a hospital in an unfamiliar town with no one she knew nearby. Would you have accepted the help of strangers from the internet? But were they really strangers? Sure, you could argue that they had never met Tonya face to face. So essentially, that meets the definition of a stranger, right? But I want you to consider something else Tonya said. She and I know more about each other than she knows about her next door neighbor. And that's true for me too. I know some of us do know our next door neighbors, but in today's world, do we really know them enough to feel comfortable to ask us to visit them in the hospital or to visit us in the hospital? Would we be comfortable going to visit them in the hospital? Or how about even, to borrow that proverbial cup of sugar? There is a reason online communities are popping up everywhere, and communities for all people in all walks of life. And no, it's not simply for a big behemoth to make more money. Well, I suspect all platform owners do that. But it's exactly what Tonya said. Everyone needs a space where they feel like they belong. Online communities serve that need for so many people, even people who like to socialize in person. For me, I can think of one online community in particular that helped me when I was going through cancer treatment. It was a very small community, but the people in that group supported me, answered my questions, and they prayed for me. It was a lifeline for me, and now I remain a member of that community, even though that was 4 years. Praise God, 4 years ago. But I remain there to support other women as they walk a road similar to mine. And in honor of Tonya's visit today, I am opening up the Warrior Words Facebook community. This is going to be a space where we can share stories and our lessons learned in more real time, as well as do our best to populate our corner of the internet with a bit of beauty. And I would love to have you join me there. I will put that link in the show notes for you. So I want to address that question I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, and that is the word real. Tonya mentioned that after the pandemic, many people redefined what the word real meant to them. People on the internet are just that. They are people, real humans with real feelings and real experiences. An online community has the opportunity to bring people together who have shared experiences. And like we've discussed on other episodes, these communities allow us to share these experiences to help others who enter the path behind us. So, how do you define a real relationship? Do you see your relationships with people online as actual human relationships? And how can you serve others online? Would you have served someone in a situation like Tonya's? Something to think about this week. Until we meet again, armor up, fight the good fight, seek beauty, and make your words warrior words. God bless.